In the first half of 2024, 599,000 children were born in Russia, which is about 16,000 fewer than during the same period in 2023. This is the lowest number of births recorded since 1999. In June, the number of newborns fell by 6%, dropping to 98,600. This was an important moment as it was the first time the number of births in a single month dipped below 100,000. At the same time, Russia's population decline has been accelerating. Between January and June 2024, there were 325,000 deaths, which is 49,000 more than the same period the previous year. This growing gap between the birth and death rates indicates a worsening demographic situation for the country. Kremlin officials have described this trend as a serious concern for the future, with fears that the shrinking population could have long-term impacts on the country's economy and workforce. Addressing this issue, officials have called for a coordinated effort to boost the birth rate. Nina Ostanina, who leads the Committee for the Protection of Families at the Duma, suggested that a special demographic operation is needed, drawing a parallel to military campaigns. She emphasized the need for an organized, strategic approach to improve the birth rate, stating, "We must organize ourselves and conduct another special operation, just like a special military operation, but this time focused on demographics." Russia is currently facing a serious workforce shortage, with not enough people available to fill all the job vacancies across various industries. This problem is partly due to the country's shift to a wartime economy. The government has been heavily sponsoring companies to increase production for the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. As these companies make substantial profits, they can afford to offer higher salaries, drawing more workers to meet their production needs. This has created a wage spiral where people are leaving their current jobs to join these state-backed companies, causing vacancies elsewhere. As a result, other businesses are also forced to raise salaries to attract new employees, intensifying the competition for workers. The government is also offering bonuses and higher pay to encourage people to join the military and take part in war efforts, pulling more individuals away from civilian jobs. This has only added to the workforce shortage, which is expected to worsen with the country's declining birth rate and rising death rate. Over the first half of 2024, Russia's recorded significantly fewer births compared to previous years, while the number of deaths has increased, creating a demographic challenge that will impact the labor market in years ahead. Over the past 2 decades, the number of people in Russia's labor force has been declining. While there was some growth until around 2009, when the labor force peaked at around 76 million, the trend started to reverse and the workforce has gradually shrunk to about 73 million. Although the unemployment rate has fallen in recent years from nearly 9% in 2009 to around 4.5% in 2022, indicating fewer people actively looking for jobs, the issue of a shrinking workforce remains. Russia's labor market is also struggling with a deeper problem: an aging population. With fewer younger people entering the workforce and many older people retiring, the imbalance is growing. Russia's current population stands at 144.5 million as of September 2024. The population dynamics in the country are influenced by 3 main factors: the number of births, the number of deaths, and net migration, which measures the difference between people entering, immigration, and leaving the country, emigration. On average, there are 3,478 births each day in Russia. However, there are 5,100 deaths occurring daily, resulting in a natural decline of 1,622 people every day. The situation is further worsening by net emigration. More people are leaving Russia than coming in, with a net migration loss of 487 people per day. When considering both natural decline and net immigration, the total population is shrinking by 2,109 people each day. Since January 2024, Russia's population has decreased by approximately 533,000 people. This loss is concerning because it means fewer people are available to contribute to the economy, adding to existing demographic challenges. To break it down further, the numbers show that in Russia, a baby is born every 25 seconds, while one person dies every 17 seconds. Also, one person emigrates from the country every 2.95 minutes. Combining these factors, Russia is losing one person from its population every 41 seconds. In contrast, the United States is experiencing population growth. With a current population of 345.8 million, the country sees 10,005 births daily and 8,341 deaths, along with a net gain of 3,521 migrants each day. This results in a daily increase of 5,186 people. Since the start of January 2024, the U.S. population has grown by over 1.3 million people. In terms of timing, a baby is born every 9 seconds, a person dies every 10 seconds, and a new migrant arrives every 25 seconds, leading to a net population gain of one person every 17 seconds. Developing economies often have high birth and death rates. As countries grow and become wealthier, these rates typically decline. For instance, in 1950, the birth rate in the USA was 24.3 births per 1,000 people. As the economy grew and became more affluent and educated, the birth rate dropped sharply during the 1960s and 1970s, reaching 14.8 by 1979. Over the last 45 years, the decline has been more gradual, and the current birth rate stands out at around 12 births per 1,000 people. This gradual change shows a steady trend in the USA. Russia's situation, on the other hand, has been quite different. In 1950, the birth rate in Russia was 27.4 per 1,000 people, similar to the USA. However, there was a rapid drop during the 1960s, and by 1968, the rate had fallen to 14.9, matching where the USA was about a decade later. The decline was much steeper in Russia, showing major socio-economic changes. By the late 1980s, authorities saw this as a major issue and introduced initiatives to encourage higher birth rates, which led to a slight recovery, with the rate rising to 16.1 by 1988. This was actually higher than the USA's 15.6 at the time. However, the end of the 1980s and the breakup of the Soviet Union in 1991 brought major shifts. The period of economic instability, the introduction of capitalist policies, and a deep depression led to a sharp decline in the birth rate. By 1999, the rate had dropped to just 8.9 per 1,000, while in the USA it was at 14.2. Recognizing the problem, Russian authorities once again pushed for programs to boost the birth rate, and by 2014 it rose to 12.9, slightly surpassing the USA's rate of 12.4. The fertility rate in Russia has also seen major changes. From a low of 1.2 children per woman in 2000, the rate climbed to a peak of 1.78 in 2015. However, this progress has not been sustained. Since then, the rate has been on a steady decline, dropping to 1.43 by 2024. These fluctuations indicate periods where fewer children were born, creating gaps in the population. Such irregularities in birth patterns are difficult to offset, leading to demographic challenges that can affect the economy in the long run. In 1950, the death rate in the USA was 9.6 deaths per 1,000 people. Over the next 60 years, there was a general decline, and by 2008, it had fallen to 8.1 per 1,000. However, in the last 16 years, the death rate has started to rise again, reaching 9.2 per 1,000, which is similar to the levels seen in 1974. This trend may seem surprising given the USA's advanced healthcare system, but it is common in developed nations where aging populations contribute to a higher death rate. As the number of elderly individuals grow, the overall death rate tends to increase, even if people are generally living longer. Russia's death rate trends, on the other hand, has been more volatile. Back in 1950, the death rate was 12.2 per 1,000 people. It dropped to an all-time low of 8.1 in 1963. However, between 1963 and 2003, the death rate in Russia rose sharply, which was a major contrast to the USA's gradual decline during the same period. By 2003, the death rate in Russia had increased to 16 per 1,000, one of the highest rates globally at the time. This increase was influenced by various factors, including economic difficulties, healthcare challenges, and societal stress during the Soviet Union's final year and its collapse. From 2003 to 2018, the death rate in Russia saw improvement, dropping to 12.7 per 1,000. Yet the downward trend didn't last. Over the past 6 years, the rate has started to rise again, currently sitting at 13.1 per 1,000, which is higher than the current rate of 9.5 per 1,000 in the USA. Looking at the global context, Russia's death rate is among the highest in developed countries. For example, Bulgaria has the highest rate at 15.6 per 1,000, followed by Ukraine at 15.2. Other countries with high rates include Latvia, Lithuania, and Romania, with Russia ranking 9th. Russia's declining population presents several challenges for its economy, and the trend is expected to continue over the next 50 to 100 years. Historically, Russia's population grew from 103 million in 1950 to a peak of 149.5 million in 1991, around the time of the Soviet Union's dissolution. After that, the population declined, hitting a low of 143.5 million in 2008, then rising slightly to 146.5 million. However, the current population is down to 144.5 million, and projections indicate a continued decline. By 2030, it's expected to fall to 142 million, by 2040 to 138 million, and by 2050 it could drop to 136 million. This decline is driven by a combination of low birth rates, high death rates, and net migration losses. While a shrinking population does not always lead to a shrinking economy, it results in a major challenge. Economies can still grow with fewer people if productivity is increased, such as through advancements in technology. However, Russia faces difficulties in this area due to international sanctions. These restrictions have cut off access to cutting-edge technology from the West, limiting Russia's ability to boost productivity and drive economic growth. While China has made advancements in technology, it still lags behind global leaders, and Chinese companies supplying Russia face the risk of secondary sanctions. The situation is even more concerning when considering Russia's demographic structure. The country has an aging population and fewer young people entering the workforce. This imbalance could further strain the economy, making it challenging for Russia to sustain growth in the future. Russia's population pyramid shows some serious demographic issues. It breaks down the population by age and gender, with males on the left and females on the right. Unlike the more balanced shape seen in developed countries like the USA, Russia's pyramid is uneven. The top part, covering ages 35 and up, has a typical aging pattern, with the largest group being those aged 35 to 39, making up 4.4% of the population for both men and women. The numbers gradually drop as the age increases. The bottom of the pyramid is where the problem lies. There is a clear narrowing, especially in the age groups from 0 to 4, 20 to 24, and 25 to 29. This shows a big drop in birth rates and a rise in death rates. Unlike the USA, where lower birth rates are balanced by high migration, Russia is not attracting enough people to make up for the decline. In fact, more Russians are leaving the country than coming in, making the problem worse. There is also a gender imbalance. The female population is larger than the male due to higher death rates among men. Men in Russia have lower life expectancy, and many have been lost in conflicts over the years. The retirement age makes things even harder. Women in Russia retire at 58 and men at 63, which is much earlier than in countries like the USA, where it's 67. Early retirement means fewer people working and paying taxes, while more rely on state pensions. This shrinking workforce and rising pension costs are putting a lot of pressure on Russia's economy. Life expectancy in Russia has also changed drastically over the past 70 years. In 1950, men were expected to live to 51 years, while women could expect to live until 58.9. Today, those numbers have risen to 67.5 years for men and 79.2 years for women. This increase shows progress, but it also presents challenges. Men in Russia live around 4 years past their retirement age of 63, while women live an additional 21.2 years beyond their retirement age of 58. This means women will draw pensions from the state over 2 decades, creating a financial strain. The situation is made worse by the fact that there are more women than men in Russia, as seen in the population pyramid. With a falling birth rate and more people living longer, the burden on the state will continue to grow. By comparison, in the USA, life expectancy for men has increased from 65.4 years in 1950 to 77 years today, while for women it has risen from 71 to 82 years.